everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Right Saloon. And tonight's legend to walk into the Right Saloon is Uwe Fujo Bear. Uwe Fujo Bear, how you doing? Can I go ahead and call you
I'm
Sean the
doing
rest of?
great.
Can I go ahead and call you Sean the rest of the episode?
Yes, please do. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Everyone knows me as Sean. That's my name.
So, Sean, I've been following you on the app now since 2 weeks since it started. You got the glass
Yeah,
blown business going. It's really awesome art. I really appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you.
Actually, I just bought a piece today, so I'm really excited for that to come in. So,
Oh yeah.
tell us about yourself, where you're at, and how you got there.
All right. Well, I live in Olympia, Washington currently, or Olympia, Washington area, a town called Centralia. It's a lot smaller, about 20, 30 minutes away, but there's a lot of stuff I do in Olympia. I
I,
used to live in Olympia too. So,
I lived in
um,
Bremerton, Washington, for a couple
oh,
years.
cool.
Yeah, when I was in the Navy, I
Yeah,
was
there's a
stationed
naval
out
base
there.
there. I think I remember hearing you say that with the Hank Bear one, and that was one of the reasons I was like, oh, I need to talk to this guy.
Yeah, so this is funny. I was stationed in Charleston with Hank Bear, and I was stationed in the Pac Northwest with you at one time. Been to Olympia many of times.
Nice. Charleston, South Carolina?
Yep, Charleston, South Carolina. I was there as a civilian. I wasn't. That was right when I got out of the Navy. The Navy hired me as a civilian, and I went to work down there.
Okay, my parents were from my mom was born in Charleston and my dad born in Michigan, but they met and got married and everything in Charleston, South Carolina, went to school and all that stuff there.
That's
So that was
awesome.
another thing. I was like, yeah, I wanted to make a point to mention that. Um, cool. Where I was born in North Carolina, my dad went into the Air Force and married my mom, got into the Air Force when they were like 19. And so I was born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and uh, we stayed there until my dad went to Korea for a year, and me and my mom lived with her parents in Charleston for that year. And my dad did a mountaintop remote mission. He couldn't take us; it just wasn't an option. Being it was in Korea, so we did that for a year, and then we went to Satellite Beach, Florida, for 3 years after my dad got back from there, and that's on Patrick Air Force Base where the Cape Canaveral is, and they shoot up shuttles. So twice when I was a kid, in that 3 years, I saw the shuttle go up from my backyard.
That's awesome.
From there, we went to Texas, and that was just for 9 months. My dad did some schooling there, and then Mississippi for 7 years on the Keesler Air Force Base on the Gulf Coast. We were there for 7 years, and then I finished high school. My dad retired there, and after 20 years, and then I finished high school in Northwest Florida. We moved there because he liked the Eglin Air Force Base that was there and all the hunting and fishing and stuff they had. So, and then I decided after high school I was going to pursue tattooing because college just didn't make any sense to me and the cost of it. And my parents weren't going to help me out with it financially. So it was a floor man position. I was wanting to be an apprentice and learn, but I was very young, like 19. So what was available was the floor man thing. So I dealt with the customers for tips from the artist, and it was a pretty cool experience. And but it never turned into a tattoo career or anything. So after that, while I was at the tattoo shop working there, one of the guys, the tattoo artist, had a wife who worked like three doors down at the head shop, and so I was probably 18. I must have been 18 when this happened because I was finally old enough to go in there. You got to be 18, just like the tattoo shop. And I'm in there and I'm talking to the lady and getting to know her because it's easy because she already, knew her husband. So asking her all these questions about these pipes, and I'm looking at them and like can tell they're handmade, and there was just intrigued by them. Some were really cool looking, and just the colors and everything. And it was the first time I'd really seen it too. So we didn't have the internet quite the way it is today. So I asked her where they come from and all that. And she told me they were made in China. And I still, even then, I was fascinated by them. And showed me the catalog and stuff and the markup on them and everything. And I was like, wow, somebody's making these by hand. I got to figure out how that is. So it's just something that stayed in the back of my mind for a while. And then, because I was really serious about the tattooing thing, or I was trying to be anyway, for quite a while. And then I ended up going to New Orleans as a young kid with nothing really else to do and looking for work, and I ended up living in a hostel for a couple of months, and I met a guy from England. There's a guy from London and a guy from
Real,
India.
real quick, just for reference, what year is this about?
Oh, I graduated high school in 2002. So this would have been probably, I turned 21 when I was in New Orleans during this time. So I was born in 83. So that would have put this 2004.
Okay.
This story is 2004. And so, yeah, I went to New Orleans, really couldn't find work, but I did find, I ended up, I had some money saved up so I could try. And I met this guy from London and a guy from India, and we got this little apartment in a neighborhood called the Faubourg Marigny, and it's real close, like 3 blocks away from Bourbon Street and all that, or the Frenchman, actually, which is probably all about 10 blocks walk from Bourbon Street. So I was definitely having a good time, and then we met this Scottish guy. He just kind of came around, and that was a mistake letting him move in, but we did. He was a lot older than us, and it was the four of us living in this apartment. I was the only American. It was interesting, and so that I ended up just driving back to Florida because I couldn't find work. It was the middle of the summer. I didn't know anybody, and that was probably the biggest part. Plus, I was having a lot of fun. I was really young. I must have been 18 or 19 when I was doing this. No, I turned 21 there. Yeah, so I still was really young. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a little bit of tile experience, but didn't have the means to like start a business or do it right. So, I had to go back to Florida, and then
What were you doing for work? Just like
I
doing
knew how to do tile. I
tile
was
on the
looking for
side?
tile work.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it for off and on for a company, a pretty good company there. This guy taught me how to do it, and so that was something I did tile for about 3.5 years, and that was my main income for a while. I even got to where I was like bought a truck and making payments on that and had an employee paying him $10 an hour and stuff. So I was, it took a while to do that, but that was something I was building up. But the housing market crashed, and that's why that ended. So the work was gone, and then so that's why I was bouncing around, going to New
Quick
Orleans. I already had a little bit of tile experience. When I came back, I just went back to tile work, probably with the same company, but it wasn't right away. I don't remember what all I did. It's
quick question for you. I, d- I,
sure.
I did tile work my last year and a half in the Navy. When we got back from
Mm,
deployment, I got put in charge of the tiling team, and
mm.
I picked up the trade myself. So that's one of the trades me and you have in common.
Well,
Do you ever find friends when they find out that you know tiling? It just so happens to coincide when they're redoing their kitchen or bathroom, and they always want to know if you will do it.
yeah, that does happen sometimes. When I was doing it for a living, yeah,
Mm,
because it would, come up in conversation a lot, definitely for sure. I, it happens with glass all the time.
does it?
Like to experience it on an obnoxious level, yeah, with the glass for sure.
Just
In the
curious.
past, but
Just curious. Sorry about that.
yeah, people are always. I always get asked if I can fix this or that, and usually the answer is no. So then I ended up going down to Tampa with my best friend. He had got out of the army. I call him my brother, really. His name's Justin, and so he went to Iraq. He went in the army just before 9/11. So that happened when I was in 11th grade. He got out of high school. He was 2 years ahead of me, and he went into the army months before 9/11 happened. He says the best thing that ever happened to him. So
Absolutely.
and yeah, that's but so he came back from the army, and so he was living in Tampa, and I went down there, crashed on this couch for a minute, and found some tile work, and made that work out for a while. But then it didn't really work out. I was working and living with the same guy, and he was just kind of a crooked dude, and it was just a combination of me being young and dumb too, and it just anyway, it didn't work out. So by the time that I was pretty frustrated with working regular jobs and all this stuff. So that's when I just kind of hit the road. I had my truck. I ended up coming back to the tattoo shop and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I ended up started just traveling around, going to different places like Houston, and ended up in Tupelo, and then after that Memphis, and we're just meeting different people. And so I get stranded in Memphis, and I end up meeting these two hippies named Dexter and the girl was named Amy, and they both had dreadlocks, and so did I. I've cleaned up a lot since these days. It was fun at the time, but I meet these two, and this guy looked like a voodoo medicine man. He was selling beers, $1 beers and $2 beers, and the girl was selling glass pipes. So I got to talking to both of them, and I found work at the festival. It was the Memphis Blues Fest, and I got to see B.B. King before he
Oh,
died at this
nice.
thing. So a very small crowd. It was cool. There was more people there for the rap artist. I think it was 3-6 Mafia. So I was working there at the liquor booth. That was only good for a day. So I ended up hanging out with these two hippies, and turns out she made these pipes. Her and her boyfriend and this old man live in Kentucky on two different pieces of property. Dexter's got his place and they got theirs. And out in the hills of Kentucky, we're making the pipes and trying to get ready for Bonnaroo and doing, just selling them at festivals and stuff like this. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so I was stranded back to Kentucky with these two people to their place in the hills. And I, resources are very limited out there. If you've ever seen anything about documentaries in the Appalachian Mountains, it was exactly like that. Poverty to the max, like you'll never see anywhere except for an inner city, but it's just out in the woods. Like these people are living off the land or drugs. Most everybody's on an opiate or something. We had a neighbor made moonshine, so I got to do that a few times, make moonshine on a like 75-year-old still built into the side of a hill and everything. That was never really meant to be a permanent thing. I ended up going from there down to, I did get my hands on some glass there because so resources were limited, so it wasn't like just like cranking out glass every day, and they had their issues too. So, but I did try my hand at glass blowing, and I made a few pendants. I made 4 pendants after he showed me how to do like something real simple, a little pendant you can wear on a necklace or whatever. And so I made 4 different things, and like one of them cracked, but three of them came out pretty all right. And he was very impressed and told me I should really stick with it. And so I was just kind of on the traveling go thing anyway. And from there, Georgia, and it didn't work out for him. And so I did not, I stayed there because it was close enough to Florida. I was like, I can hitchhike back to if I got to. So I ended up at this party. I met this guy who just invited these 3 random dudes to a party. So we went, and I stayed there, and I ended up staying the night. Woke up the next day, got along with everybody so well. He said I could stay and get a job if I wanted because he used to do traveling stuff like me, and they were carpenters. And I explained, I can probably find a tile job and everything. So, and it worked out for a few months, several months, and I ended up leaving there because the guy was just too much of an alcoholic and cut my dog with the broken bottle, uh, throwing it at him and stuff. So I left there. I went back to my parents' house, and that's when I got into truck driving.
And what year is
So
this?
2008.
2000.
I did a lot of traveling, just like with hitchhiker type kids and train riding kids, and it was just I had a like a 6-person truck with the bed. It's like a Chevy Silverado, 8-cylinder, so it was with the king cab, so there's a lot of room. So at any given time for those years, I was probably with 3 or 4 people and 2 or 3 dogs at least, sometimes more than that. We had a midget for a while. It was pretty interesting. He was excellent at panhandling. It was unbelievable to see. He was talented. I think people just had sympathy for him because he was short, and dirty or whatever. So he was this homeless dude we picked up in North Carolina, and I ended up having to just toss him out, not literally, in Florida on the way to a festival because he was just just mean. He was just a dick. Everybody hated him. And we were done, so we had to let him go. And he and his backpack. We dropped him off on the side of the road. But so I ended up getting in the truck driving. My dad helped me out getting the truck driving. So got the license. That's like a 2-week thing. You got to pay $5,000, 2-week course. Then you go to truck driving. What'd you say? It's a company you drive for, but they're like a training company, and you have to do like this one I worked with is called Covenant, and I had to do 6 months team driving, and there's a lot of really cool. I liked the job, but working for a corporation like that, I learned a lot about working for a corporation, and I very much don't like it, and wasn't for me. That's a long story about how I ended up stopping working for them. I got kind of bamboozled into indentured servitude. Basically, it's a long story, but I got a ticket and you got to be represented in court and pled me guilty to a higher charge. I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't understand that's what they were doing. I don't know why they did this. And so it put me in a position where, well, it came time where I was so sick of working for this company because just reasons. I was looking around for other companies, and like 5 different companies told me that I couldn't get hired because I had this ticket on my record for the next 5 years. And I'm like, are you serious? So I can work for the company I'm with for the next 5 years with nobody else. And so I sat and thought about it for a couple hours and told dispatch, and I'm coming back. This isn't going to work. And that was the end of my truck driving thing. It's a network of people out there that are like homeless traveling kids. And I got really immersed in it for about 3 or 4 years. And I don't have any pictures. God, I wish I had documented it, man. I could make $1 million on a movie for sure. There's a channel on YouTube called Soft White Underbelly, and that reminds me of a lot of the type of people that I met along the way, Skid Row type folks. And so yeah, I was traveling with some rough kids, and it's definitely like traveling with road pirates or something. There's a code. Never had any problems with the people that you develop this bond. I'm sure it's comparable to camaraderie in the military or something. You go through something traumatizing with a group of people, especially more than once, you develop a bond with them.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of these kids, I never got on the trains because I had my truck, but they were the crowd I ran with. And it was really their stories. Every one of their stories was usually fascinating and really like wow, they were so traumatized. Some of these people were never going to get off the road and or be homeless forever, kind of stuff. And that's why I got off the road at 25, because I was like, yeah, this is I have to, or I'm going to end up. It's basically a crossroads. I could see. I was like, well, I'm 25. I have to get off the road now, or I'm very, really, really, really going to be susceptible to just being homeless forever. And I was like, that's not an option.
So,
Fuck
so
that. I can still.
what sparked this
Hmm?
lifestyle for you? Was it like chasing the adventure of just wanting to do something
Yeah.
new, not
I
being tied down by anything?
yeah, I grew up real sheltered, and my parents were Southern Baptist
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
military, and my dad grew up without. My dad grew up with relatively no structure and 5 stepfathers and stuff. So he overdid it when it came to his household with authority and discipline and stuff like that. So I think it just drove me. How most kids typically will just do the opposite of what their parents do. So because of that lifestyle, with such an iron fist type rule in the household, it really turned me off from religion and most anything conservative. And then with just losing the tile job and all that kind of stuff, it was I don't today I couldn't do it. I don't know how it was so easy for me to say, oh, fuck it, and do it. It's just because I was so young, I guess, and everything. So it was I think it was just your natural rebellion, and also growing up so sheltered, with such strict rules and everything. I was sick of that, and I needed some freedom. I really needed some freedom. And I remember thinking too, knowing that there's my parents thought that a lot like any other millennials parents, my parents really thought I had to go to college and that there's no option. He'd ask me, you just going to be a ditch digger? Like, what am I going to go to college for? I don't know why he didn't encourage me to. We didn't really know about trade schools. I don't know. It wasn't talked about. It was propaganda. We were all susceptible to about go to college, go to college. I'm sure we all have a
Yeah,
story about that.
me and you are very close in age, and I totally remember that. Like late '90s,
Mhm.
early millennium. It was like, so what are you going to college for? It was always a prep to go to college, and I actually think it's kind of driven its way into modern society to where we've turned kids into professional students. There is nobody
Yeah,
who wants to be a ditch digger anymore, and the world needs ditch diggers.
and the world does need ditch diggers, and I have a real problem with the way it's delaying people's adolescence. it's or delaying them growing up. It's prolonging their adolescence, is what I mean to say.
Hmm.
Because I went to college for 1 day, and it was a community school, and I already didn't like school. It was too easy. I was a gifted student in the gifted student program and all that. Had the high IQ test, and so my parents really, really pushed it and made me hate it even more. And also, I went to school in Mississippi and Florida. Both of those states are in the bottom five
I
in the
graduated high
ranking of
school in
1 to
Florida.
50. Yeah, so you're not getting much of an education even in the best of districts there. So, and I knew this. I feel like so there was the No Child Left Behind thing. I really quit learning anything new after middle school. It was like ninth grade repeated 3 more times for I learned nothing new in English. And so it didn't make sense to me when you're allowed to graduate high school without enough credits to start college. So I had to pay real money for 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 classes that are remedial so I can get caught up on the math and everything so that I could even start earning college credits. And I was like, God dang. So I had to do like a year or year and a half of school before I could even start earning college credits and paying for it. I was just like, this isn't going to work. Well, you can't get. My parents were not going to sign on loans, and I'm glad they didn't. They're glad
Hmm.
they didn't. uh, so I couldn't get any help. You can't get loans on your own until you're 25, from what I understand. So I was not. Yeah, I was only like 19 or 18 when I did that, and I went there and I paid $500 for the semester, and I remember sitting down in class, because I was just like I didn't know what else to do. I was just working part time at FedEx, living at my parents' house. Everyone's telling me you got to go to college, so I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll do this. So I paid the money, sit down in class, and lo and behold, this shit is 13th grade, and I'm mad. I got people next to me cutting up like we're still in high school, and the math is like I'm just not good at math. I get straight A's in history and English and everything else, but not math. And so I'm like already. The lady had such a thick Indian accent that I was like, damn it, it was really hard to follow what she had to say. She was well I think she was a really good teacher. She was talked about being a tutor and stuff like that,
Hmm.
but it was really hard to understand things she said. And I didn't really understand the math. So the distractions of the students cutting up and all this going on in my head, I just went ahead and withdrew. And I was like, this isn't working for me. So I went right down to the tattoo shop after that. And it was like the third time the guy I asked if I could work there, he finally said yes. So that was interesting. I had to really show him that I meant it, and he told me about that later on. That was pretty cool. So that was the end of the college thing for me, and it was just really disappointing. I didn't even get all of my money back, but I got some of it back. And like Jordan Peterson says that you're supposed to. College is meant for people who are brilliant. You don't send people to college to become brilliant. It's supposed to be the other way around. College isn't meant for average people. There's no use for it for average people. I've honestly never come into a situation where I needed my high school diploma. I could have had a GED for the truck driving job,
You
you
know what
know?
you know what's
So,
crazy? What's crazy about what you said? First off, kudos on you for figuring out college wasn't for you that quickly, because I made the
yeah.
mistake of paying for 3 years before I decided college wasn't for me, and I didn't get a
Wow.
degree, and I paid for and I never took out a loan. I worked full time as a butcher and went to school
That's
full
amazing.
time, so I paid everything off as it happened because I knew I didn't want to be tied down. Debt is my big thing. Like I never want to be tied down by debt, even though it's inevitable in some cases. It's crazy how many people go get a degree in
Hmm.
something completely useless that has nothing to do with anything. They're in debt and then they're never going to get that six-figure job. And especially for some degree programs where
Right.
the six-figure job, there's only like two of them in the whole entire world that get six figures. It's just crazy to me.
Right. Like I used to work with this guy who had a friend, and he said it was like it's just the most typical tragic story of it, where his friend they're hippies. We're trimming weed at a legitimate business. It's a recreational weed warehouse, and so we're trimming weed, and he's talking about his friend who's waiting tables, depressed out of his mind because he's got a $200,000, it might have just been $100,000 geology degree, bachelor's degree, but he's such a hippie And the only thing you can get with a geology degree that's, a viable career, some kind of six-figure salary to justifies the debt, is working on oil platforms. But this motherfucker just likes geodes and looking, being a hippie, and so he won't do it. And I'm like, wow, dude, like you deserve to wait tables from your choices you made. Like
Yeah,
some people have. I have a lot to say about the subject,
and it's
I'm very glad that
and I'm so
I
glad you
don't
brought
have
this whole
regret.
subject up where you mentioned you didn't even need your high school diploma. Every
Hmm.
job I've had outside of the Navy requires a
Right.
college degree. I don't
Wow.
have a college degree. It's never been an issue for me, even though it's a requirement. And that's one thing I wish people understood. Like, hey, you'd be perfect for this job. Why don't you apply? I don't have a college degree. Well, still apply. Nah, I'm not going to bother. They'll never hire me. I'm living
Right.
example. I have gotten two major jobs. The one I'm currently holding is one of
Right.
them without a college degree that requires it. So, as long as you have a great work history, and I mean, for me, the military is obviously a huge boost, but
That's a great start for everybody. Yeah.
as long as you have the skills and I think what's great is that ideals we had in the late 90s crossover to the millennial, I think that's starting to change where people are preferring
Yeah.
experience over
With
education.
Gen Z.
Yeah, I think so many people have ruined companies' taste with education, picking not the educated one and not the one with the most experience, that
Yeah.
window is starting to change.
Yeah, for sure. I know Elon Musk talks about that. I love what he says that college just shows that you can finish your chores,
Hmm.
do your homework. That's all college degree really says in today's world. That doesn't mean that an engineering degree or like a real degree doctor, that's not what we're
Absolutely.
talking about. It's
Absolutely.
it's these associate degrees that's what I was just couldn't figure out. It's like what's at the end of this besides a bunch of debt. And I also, part of my problem and part of my dumb luck was my bad attitude back then. It just, first of all, didn't make no sense to me, and second of all, I just had it in my head I want to be a tattoo artist. I always wanted to be some kind of artist, but I've been talking about being a tattoo artist since I was in like fourth grade. So and yeah, so it was a little bit of dumb luck that I didn't decide to go into, but it was I don't know, easy decision to make when my parents weren't supportive of it at all, either.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I could have, if the tile business had worked out, I could have built that into something really good, but the market didn't work out there. So
And everything happens for a reason.
yeah, yeah, it definitely did. And like I'm glad that I can do a backsplash if I have to in my own house for my own pleasure, but I don't know. I would maybe even do it on a side gig or something, but I'm happy that I'm not doing tile. So I did those gap of years. I went to a lot of different music festivals and stuff, and the intention behind that was that I thought, well, what I was seeing other people do, and looked like the way it was done is that you blow a bunch of glass at home and then you take it to festivals. So I was going to all these different festivals, figuring out if which ones are going to be good. Like got a big crowd and a good crowd, and other vendors that are happy and stuff like that too. So that was kind of the whole intention behind it. So I wasn't just completely aimlessly wandering going to these festivals because some people are like that, but typically the kids I was with, we were on some kind of mission, and yeah, and it involved getting to the next town usually and doing what we had to do at the festivals to get the money together and make it happen. It was a lot of fun. And so during truck driving, that's how I discovered Olympia. And we had to do 6 months of truck driving partners. One of them was I had a few, but one of them lived in Olympia. He was like a taxi driver for like 10 years prior to the truck driving thing. And so he had friends, and he called him up. It hadn't talked to him in a long time, years or whatever. He called him up, and um, we went out to lunch and stuff like that. And they showed us the town, told me about the college and everything. And I was like, this is awesome. I think I really like this town, and it seemed like somewhere I'd like to live. And being a truck driver, there's some flexibility with that. So um, that was the idea. So I got a hold of Justin again, and he was in Florida, getting ready to come up to Tacoma, which is like 45 minutes away. And so we're both at the same time, without even knowing it, had intentions of moving to Washington. So eventually he was on his way to Washington, and I don't know what he did, but he ran out of money and made some poor choices and was stuck in Dallas. And he had a job waiting on him in Tacoma, and he was hanging out in this girl's apartment, and it was just supposed to be until he got onto the plane to go to it was just supposed to stop for a day or something. She got like she was catching feelings, and so he was like stuck at this girl's apartment. And I just happened to be driving through Dallas on our way to Tennessee, where Chattanooga was where the headquarters was. Whenever we take our break and get out of the truck and all that, so my truck driving partner at that time was pretty cool, and we picked him up. I saved him, and we picked him up in Dallas, and from his bad situation, and took him to Tennessee. Now we had to go all the way to El Paso after that, and then back to Tennessee. So we camped out for a bit, and I put him on a plane to Washington, and told him I'll be in Olympia soon. It's just a matter of time. So good luck. And he ended up doing pretty good. Now he's married and he's got a kid, and they live in Oregon.
That's awesome.
I ended up after the truck driving was done with. I got up immediately, got back to my traveling friends because I love traveling. That's why I got the truck driving job and everything. And too, it was and the truck driving job and a lot of the aspects about that lifestyle and stuff were really cool. Uh, but it was the corporate working for the corporation and them finagling me with all that stuff. But that actually happened long ago. It wouldn't even show up now. But so I get out of the truck drive and I immediately contact my train kids, and we meet up in Georgia. And there's a new guy. We all had different names. Their names were crazy too. There's one kid was named Gurge. My name was Keebler, like the elves. There's one chick named Uncle Mom, because she was like a good bit older than everybody, so she was kind of like she didn't want to mother everybody because that was obnoxious, and the young kids sort of need a little more guidance a lot of the times. And she's like more like your uncle, but your mom. So Uncle Mom was just her name. And then her old man's name was Satan. I probably wouldn't hang out today with a guy named Satan, but it's a little bit comical, like South Park or something. But so we came out west. I wanted to come out here, get to Olympia. I hung out with Justin for a while, but I definitely did not want to live in Tacoma, and they didn't really have room for me to crash in their place or anything anyway. And I was more than comfortable sleeping in my car. I'd been doing or in my truck. They had the big bench seats and everything, and even with my dog and all that, it was comfortable enough, and I was just used to it. So I was uh I was in Olympia, and so we pretty much all disbanded. Everybody wanted to keep doing their own thing, and the whole idea was just to get me up to Olympia. And then I pretty much was like, yeah, I'm going to stay there. And a lot of traveling kids end up staying there and settling down now. And they have a huge problem with their homeless population right now, and a lot of places on the West Coast, they no different. So I ended up, uh, I ended up, just crashing in my truck and trying to figure out what am I going to do. So I found that they got a really nice farmers market, and so this is kind of where the glass thing really starts to begin. And I meet this guy. I'm walking around the farmers market. I've got dreads down my ass, wearing overalls, black Carhartt overalls. I probably look like I'm up to no good, but I wasn't. I see this dude's got these really long dreads. He's like this really tall, skinny dude with dreads. Probably had some Rastafari colors or something on, and I was like, all right, this is the one guy I'm going to be able to talk to right here. So, and turned out he had this pamphlet, and I open it and read. I'm talking to him, and vegetables look wonderful. He's selling plant starts and vegetables, and I go through his pamphlet and his farm. Talking about his farm, that he's a glass blower for a living, but his dream is to become a farmer full time and all this stuff. And I was like, glass blowing, what? Talk to me now. And so we talked about that. I was like, man, I really want to learn how to blow glass and need to, and he said I could come out there and gave me the address and everything. So I think the next day I did. And I was just like, I want to make this work out. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we're going to make this work out. And he had offered it, he said he had a place for me to stay and everything, and he'd done it before. And, so it wasn't like I was completely imposing, but in a little bit I was. But I needed to make this happen, and so and I knew this was going to be the only opportunity. Like you don't meet a lot of glass blowers. I know I only do because I am a glass blower, and there's a ton of them in my area, sort of, or in the state, or on the West Coast. But you go, average person does never met a glass blower, So, and I don't even know any of the real professional ones that do the soft glass,
I,
So I just know pipe makers.
I don't say this as a negative, but one thing I noticed when I lived in the Pac Northwest is it seems like there's a lot of people in the Pac Northwest who would be employed at a Renaissance fair. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I do.
Like hand wax dipping,
Definitely.
blown glass, people who
Yeah.
somehow grilled giant turkey
Hmm.
legs.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. They have. I've been to barter fairs. They have barter fairs that's just that, but not with any sort of medieval theme to it. But barter fairs are pretty cool. But you'll find those people. Some people do dress up like they're at a Renaissance fair at these things because some people come for the party, and some people. It's supposed to be a family atmosphere for the most part. But
Mhm.
barter fairs are pretty cool. They have one in Okanagan that every year. I haven't been in a long time. So I go out to the farm and I see a sign that says uh, Goldsboro Street, and I was like, "Damn, I was born in Goldsboro. It's a sign from God." And so then I get further down the road, and it says Stoner Street. I'm like, "Fuck, wow, okay, so that's a good sign too." And so we get there, and dude's in a chef uniform. I'm like what? He didn't say anything about being a chef. So it turns out he went to chef school, and that's what got him interested into the farming stuff, and trying to do it organically and as direct to the restaurants and stuff as possible. And that's what he really wanted to do, was grow specifically for restaurants and things. And got to talking to him, and ended up there's this school bus, and it was kind of ratted out, but relatively set up to be lived in. And so there's a little, a mattress and area for me to sleep, and there was a wood stove, and there was a I had a propane stove for cooking. I never used the oven; I just used the stove top. So cook with propane. Actually, there was a bathtub in the back, so I had to heat up my bath water on the stove and then bathe out of buckets. And this went on. I stayed there for a year and a half, living like this primitive way, and it was cool because it was still an upgrade from living out of the cab of my truck, you know, and it was nice being able to, bathe every day again, or as often as I wanted to, at least. Because when you're living on the road like I was, and that was one of the lowest priorities, which is sad to say, but the homeless people, they don't really care about taking a bath. You get kind of used to it too. And I guess if you're in the army out in the desert for long enough, it might be a similar experience, But yeah, so it was primitive. It kind of sucked in a lot of ways. I had to even go into town to do laundry. We didn't have a laundry machine, so that was a 23-mile ride, and I'd have to call ahead on the we got a free ride share thing for the county, but you had to call ahead a day in advance and schedule the ride there and back and be there on time. And it was great. It was cool. You had to be organized about it though to use the laundry in town. So,
Kind of sounds
I
like my life now. I don't have a washer and dryer out here in the woods, so the, once a week
it's
I go
rough.
into town for groceries and laundry, and I knock them
There you
both out
go.
at the same time. Other than that,
Yep.
I never leave. That's the only thing that gets me off
Yeah.
my property.
Yeah. I live in a neighborhood where I got just 5 blocks away is a grocery store, so I'm always just constantly. I wish I only shop once a week, but I go almost every day because it's just convenient. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I stayed out there for a year and a half. The guy that owned the place, he had one of the guy that worked there in the glass shop. He had been there 5 or 6 years. He was proficient, and he was a good glass blower, and he learned from him. And then there was me. So for the guy who owned the place, I was there predominantly, especially in his mind, there as an intern for the farming. I wasn't ungrateful at all. I was definitely interested in the farming and stuff. My priority was the glass. So, me being a farm intern was number one. So, because I did farm work for room and board, for the rent of that thing,
That's
and it
awesome.
was a real apprenticeship as far as the glass. To tell you the truth, I learned a whole lot more about gardening and farming and growing vegetables and some chicken stuff. We slaughtered 50 chickens one year and raised some lambs and stuff too. So I know a whole lot more about working the farm or I learned a whole lot more about working the farm from that guy than I did glass blowing. But learned how to make just basic little spoon pipes and bong bowls. And he made the bongs. The other guy made a lot of different little hand pipes. And we did a couple of hemp fests, 2 hemp fests that year. We did 2 barter fairs, or not that year, but 2 years. We did hemp fest twice. We did the barter fairs, and we had but man, the place was set up kind of cool. It was a little ragged, a little run down. And then also I was like, well, now that I see it, I know it. I've gotta learn as much glass one as I can to do this on my own. So I should describe the farm because it was actually kind of impressive. The way I was able to save money was really from working the work market booth because the glass blowing was not. I'd get paid by the piece, and he wasn't honest either about how much he was paying. So he kind of just gave me what he felt like. It would be like 20, 40, $50 here and there every time he'd go sell glass. You know, and I'm watching him definitely bring in 3, 4 grand a month just in glass. So it was just, but at the same time, I didn't have to pay for any of the materials, none of the gas, none of the oxygen or propane. I was able to do it all in my free time and living on the farm, doing the farm work. So it wasn't really anything for me to complain about. It felt unfair a lot at times, but at the same time, I knew I would never find this kind of opportunity to learn how to blow glass really anywhere else. And I still believe that it's just kind of a rare thing, even trying to pay for it. And then I've also learned that, there's a lot of people in the glass blowing scene or industry or whatever that just like, I don't know. I don't really have any glass blowing friends. A lot of them are just kind of just flaky, to be nice. Yeah, I guess that's to be expected. A lot of these glass blowers back in the day too grew weed for their income. That's something I never had the opportunity to do, and so uh, that's been a different part of the struggle of my glass blowing thing too. Is that a lot of these guys you watch them, like it looks like they're having a lot of success, behind the scenes, their money's coming from their grow, their wife works, they've got money coming from other places, and their glass is selling. So it's just like the whole time I did this was solo, just selling glass, and it was a struggle. And so the farm had a 90-foot greenhouse that had tomatoes, and then we had a 60-foot greenhouse that was where we did all our starts, and then we did greens, and then later in the year melons and stuff like that. We had a winter squash patch, we had a summer squash patch, probably about 100 of each plant. And that's a lot of space for squash. So we had strawberries, we had June bearing and ever bearing. So we had 2 strawberry patches. There's a little bit of a blueberry. I don't know if that's an orchard, whatever, blueberry patch. Few fruit trees. Then we had the chickens the one year. Then we had lambs. Those didn't go well. He didn't prepare for predators, and they got just wiped out. Except for the second year. The first year, somehow we got through 50 chickens one year, and meat birds. That was pretty interesting. But so, and it was all on 20 acres. It was like a long strip of 20-acre land, and so that was a lot to maintain. For the most part, it was just me and him doing the farm work. He would get some help here and there, but we really could have used 4 people easily all year or all season at least to do the work that needed to be done. So I learned a whole lot more about farming and everything, and I really enjoyed it. I'd never done it before. I had no idea that it would be something. You can feel the connection to it for sure. Like in being out there eating the food, he was really good at it. Another thing too, so the food tasted so good. You just be out there grazing, and just get lunch while you're weeding, and there's a Brussels sprout or whatever, and the mustard greens are so good. The snap peas, golly, just everything was so fresh, and I didn't like vegetables at all before living on the farm. And my mom mostly would buy canned vegetables, so I grew up on canned, but they still to this day I won't eat them. They don't taste good. So like green beans and corn, and I eat corn on the cob, but I can't. I just don't like canned vegetables. And
Have a garden now? Do you grow your own food now or no?
so I'm living in an apartment, and it's like a house with a mother-in-law suite, sort of. It's
Hmm.
you could call it that. Above the glass shop in the backyard, so it's just like a corner lot. And my my buddy that I rent from, he's a glass blower too, and him and his little lady got a couple of raised beds out there. And last year, I've been here 2 years and been living in apartments before that for a couple of years too. So I haven't had a garden, a real garden since I've lived there. And this was 11 years ago, so, or 8 years ago, really, since I've had a real garden. So this year, I planted all that garlic in the pots, and I'm doing everything in pots. I got all my seeds already. I'm limited. I'm only doing pots because I don't have garden beds. I want to be mobile, or either I like to move stuff around, because of light. You got trees and everything around. So
Hmm.
throughout the year, I'm gonna have to move some stuff around, and pots are cool like that. And plus, they got dogs and everything, so I've got to be prepared. And so I'm doing Roma tomatoes so I can make sauce. I've got like 6 different super hot peppers, the ghost pepper and the reaper and all that, and cayenne too. And then I'm doing all the herbs, like 12 different herbs, oregano,
That's
rosemary,
awesome.
all of that different stuff. Um, so I got to build a little hot house, that's for sure, because the peppers are. I'm in Western Washington, so I'm going to have the extra little bit of heat and humidity in the little hot house, so, or hoop house or something for the peppers. But and then I'm growing. That's pretty much it. It's kind of like the salsa garden. Oh, and yeah, the garlic. I already mentioned that. So garlic's already planted because you got to do that in November or in the late fall, and it'll really start taking off in the spring. So it's all sprouting already and right on time. So that
Nice.
I'm gonna have a good garlic harvest. Probably got at least 30 garlic plants going. So yeah, it's so I'm just doing that. I'm focusing on the peppers because I've grown them only the one time, and they're hard to grow. So I'm focusing on the peppers and pretty familiar with the tomatoes. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing a real small garden. You can't even really call it a salsa garden because I'm not doing any kind of onions or peppers or anything like that.
Hmm.
But I mean, like green,
Green
bell pepper. I'm
peppers,
not
bell
doing any kind of,
peppers. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. At least you
but
are growing stuff.
yeah, yeah, I definitely love the connection of growing the food and just the herbs and everything. I love cooking and herbs and everything. So, and that's why I'd rather grow my own garlic and rosemary and everything. I'm looking. I'm like, yeah, most of this. Like, I even got a cumin seed, so I'm gonna try to grow cumin because I love Mexican flavored food, chili powder and stuff like that. And yeah, I love the gardening stuff. I really like saving money at the grocery store too. So that's a big motivation of growing the food.
It's the
Plus,
number one reason I do
what's
it.
going into it. I love the eggs that come from homemade or homegrown chickens too. They're different. They're very different. They're really rich in the yolk and everything, and you can see it and taste it. That's awesome. I love homegrown chicken eggs. Then I went to Olympia. I had saved up $500 from working at the market booth and everything, and I had a buddy that had come out there for a summer. His name was Brian, and we hit it off really well. And he lived in Olympia at his parents' house, and he was trying to finish up college. He had a lot of issues, and I think he ended up going on disability for schizophrenia and shit. And so he, like I said, he had a lot of issues, and make that long story short. But he he had he I ended up having to just get the hell out of there. So I got in the van. I borrowed a van from a friend that I made a friend that was this Reiki master, and he had this yurt out there. It was like 10 miles away from the farm, and I'd go out there a bunch. I met him at the farmers market, and he's a really cool dude, and he was like an angel, man. Because I was going through a really hard time. Like that guy, the guy that owned the place, was going through nothing but negativity, man. And he really projected it out onto other people, and it was hard to deal with. And so, like it was like a sanctuary. This guy's yurt and everything. We do these Reiki sessions and energy healing and all this stuff. And only ever half believed in it anyway, So I don't, but the sanctuary that I could feel, I didn't care if it was real or if it worked or whatever. It was just awesome being around good people and
Yep.
talking about something other than farming and glass blowing and stuff. So it was really cool. It was at least once a month, maybe not even that often. He'd have events and stuff and everything, and he was a really cool dude. But so I borrowed the van from him, and took all my stuff down to Olympia. I didn't have a glass blowing torch. I didn't have anything. Everything I used was his, and so um, I had to figure out what was I gonna do. And no, I had the wrong attitude about I'm gonna do this without a job, even a part-time job, which was ignorant. And I really could have helped myself out a lot if had I just gotten a part-time job. So anybody who wants to get in the glass, I advise don't make that mistake. Keep your day job or whatever they say. So I ended up in Olympia, and so that did a lot of bouncing around because I only had the $500. I had to like find places, the rooms to rent. He introduced me to some people. Crashed there for a while. Found a little place to rent until that didn't work out, and then I found this where I met this guy at this party, and he had a torch. It's just a random dude, and I was selling glass, and that's how we got to talking about it. And so it was a little more than random. He he was like just this hippie college kid, and I was like, he didn't really know what he was doing. Some guy let him borrow the torch and a kiln, and he had some material, and he knew where to buy glass materials and stuff, and an idea of what he wanted to do. But he was completely untrained and unskilled. He didn't know what he was doing. You could see it too. So I was like, well, I can show you what I do and teach you, fundamentals and basics and stuff like that. So that was our deal. I could use the torch anytime he wasn't using it, which wasn't often. He was a college student, so he was busy, and he liked to be up late at night, and I was just a day, normal day guy. So it was convenient, and he didn't ever learn a whole lot from me, but I sure ran the hell out of that torch, and I used that kiln till it just fried out one day. I don't know why, and so that was when I had to start borrowing. I ended up borrowing 8 different torches, the same model, and it's the one I still have. Before I owned my own torch, and because they're like $500, and for some hitchhiker kid like I was, a lot of money. It's hard to come
Hmm.
up with without a part-time job. Trying to scrape by. My rent was like $600 a month for just a room, and we got utilities and shit like that. It was a lot for.
When you're that broke, it might as well be $5 million. There's no difference in it.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Might as well get a car and be okay with sleeping in it periodically if you have to, or like it was. I was just so used to living out of a vehicle, and my truck died at the farm, so that's why I had to borrow that van, and it died on the side of the road, and wasn't. I didn't have any way to fix it or anything, so it just got. I had to let that go, and lost the truck. It was a nice truck, but and it was a truck I learned to drive in too, so it was kind of a little bit sentimental. It really sucked having to let it go like that, but it was probably done. It was like a 20-year-old truck. Um, so yeah, I bounced around Olympia a lot. No stability. I never had to be homeless, and it was never like I never was in some dire situation or anything. But it was a lot of bouncing around, and a lot of times against my will. It was just what I had to roll with because I was just I had no credit, and I didn't have much of an income. I was able to make 80 to $100 a day. I definitely would work like 5 days a week, and that was before expenses. So I still had to pay for propane, oxygen, and paying rent, and then I was piecing everything together. Borrowing torches, but like an oxygen tank's $300, and I needed 2 or 3 of them. So eventually, I had 3 of them, and the propane tanks are good size ones, $100, $50. So it was like piecing all this stuff together, and then finally the hoses, the regulators, and just everything. It was just I was able to piece it together. It was really cool. And eventually, I tried going down to Oregon for a little while and start up this little shop with this guy. That did not work out. And he thought he could handle the business part of it, and I was doing all the glass work, and he just I don't know. The glass blowing can be fickle as far as the market. It's like
Mhm.
you might sell a whole bunch in one week, but nothing hardly in the next week, or a ton of stuff to a wholesale account this week, but then next week's a whole bunch of stuff retail. It's like fishing kind of, sometimes, and so you've got to just stay active with all of your options, as best
I,
you
I
can.
gotta imagine conventions and festivals are your bread and butter.
It can be if you're well prepared. Conventions, the expos, from I'm gonna just learn from other people's mistakes on that one and not ever mess with it because I have a lot of reasons, and definitely get more into that in the later in the story. But it's a very expensive. They're usually in Las Vegas, so they have all these different unions and stuff. Like you have to pay like $300 for these union workers to haul your haul everything you have. You're not allowed to carry your own luggage into the hotel type shit. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. I can't do that and not get mad. Like it's just who I am. That would piss me off. I can do this myself, and you're strong arming me with this union and the laws here. No, I'm just. It just starts with something like that, and then it just builds on the like I said, we're the cannabis industry. We're not the glass art industry. So there's a lot of flaky people, a lot of stoners, and some of them, a lot of wonderful, awesome people too. I want to paint it as like it's just like, well, they have had hotels ask them not to come back because people don't know how to act in public. Those are some reasons I don't want to deal with the expos. Plus, you'll spend $5,000-$6,000 before you even make your first buck. And so, but you can come home with $30,000 worth of orders that you need to churn out throughout the year. So if you're well organized and you're a big enough operation, it can really be the right move. But I've never been in that position.
Gotcha.
So I don't feel like I need it either. I do find I've never gone, and I've been blowing glass for 11 years and only been 2 years where I was working a part-time or a full-time job out of the whole time, or a year and a half even, maybe 2 years. And then part of that was working at a weed shop that I sold glass to. So it's it's an interesting industry, and it's one that I've in a lot of ways distanced myself from because of politics and just everything we've seen with the liberalism and everything. It's a big group of artist that the roots is the Grateful Dead scene, and so it's there are some old heads out there too that are conservative and vote Trump and got the Grateful Dead logos and all that stuff. And I'm not that kind of hippie. I never really was. I was a gutter hippie. I was like thrash punk, train riding type, really rough group. And uh, the hippie love and rainbows is it just didn't compute with us. That's one reason I've never, always done skulls and stuff like that with my glass art too. So people oftentimes say it's too metal. It's not Grateful Dead enough. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So, I've always had that challenge with the glass market and the hatefulness towards Trump supporters, or, if you think you see it, it's way worse in the glass scene than I've ever seen anywhere. It's ridiculous. And so I'll get into that more because it's been an interesting. It's that part of the story comes in with me discovering the Bears and Owen and all that, and I really identify with the hashtag Walk Away movement and everything. I used to think I was a liberal, and turns out I'm not. So, but it took Trump coming into office for me to even understand politics at all, really, and to um, it's not a very unique story, really, that I was grown up conservative, rebelled against it in my teens and 20s, and then came back full circle. And now I realize, oh, okay, the good things about conservatism that I just did not learn from my boomer ass parents. I wish they had explained things, and they didn't. A thing. And the longer I was there, the more stability I would get. I ended up did pull off living a whole year at one place, and then my mom got uh, diagnosed with brain cancer for the second time, and
And we're
so
like 6 years ago now, if I'm tracking
this would
correctly.
have been this was 2015.
So 5 years
No,
ago.
so this would have been so when I got the call about my mom, it would have been 2014. Yeah, because I had been in Olympia a good 5 years, yeah, and bouncing around that one time in Oregon and all over Olympia and everything. Yeah, it was a good 5 years. So then I got the call about my mom, and so the fact of the matter was it was the second time around, and really the kind of cancer she had too. Nobody survives the second round. Well, most people don't even survive the first. It was kind of a miracle she made it 5 years after this type of brain tumor and shit. So. And the first time I was out on the road and doing my thing, and I was like, well, no, I can't come back. It's like you're telling me that, my parents were not happy about that I wasn't going to come there for the surgery. Well, first of all, it was like, yeah, just like it wasn't practical for me to just like, are you telling me to come just move into your house as, like a 24-year-old or whatever? Like, I don't remember how old I was, but uh, it was just not practical. You got it, cured for 5 years or whatever. So I never really felt bad about like not going. They hated it, but I didn't really feel guilty about not going the first time. But I was like, well, I'm not gonna not go the second time. So, but and I guess this is a good place to say that I never had a good relationship with my parents. They were always just too strict, just too overbearing with their authority and shit. And I don't know if I'm naturally just a person that can't stand that, or is them doing it made me hate that kind of stuff. But Southern Baptist military, it's just too much for me. And so, I don't even know if it's that. It's just my dad's personality is like that, kind of controlling and stuff. And I'm sure it's because of the chaos of his childhood. And I'm sure I can understand it if sat down with a psychologist or something. But so it was like it was a weird thing. This wasn't just like an easy, comfortable decision. I'm like, okay, I better do this because I'll never live this one down. And even though I'm not that close to him and stuff, I do feel like this is the right decision. And so I went, and it turned out not to be a great decision. And they were my mom was kind of not in the right frame. Well, not even kind. She was not in the right frame of mind after the surgery, and so they were not they didn't really appreciate even having me there. So I ended up coming back to Olympia before the funeral even happened. They told us that she would only live 3 months, and it went on for a year and a half. And like after a year, it just got too tense between me and my dad, and we don't get along. And so I ended up moving out of there and stayed
Sorry to
in
hear that.
town. Yeah, yeah, it is what it is. So we stayed in town and still come over to help out, and then it just got to the point where mom was getting worse, progressively getting worse. So I was really needed and helpful before in that first year because uh my mom could still get out of bed and sit up and eat at the table and stuff like that, and it was really important to keep her moving and so we don't get bed sores and just like try to give her as much of a normal life. She's paralyzed one arm, and we needed to feed her and stuff eventually. So it was, we did our best to just give her dignity, I guess probably is the best way to say it. And so eventually when she became so bedridden, we had my aunt there. My dad's sister came in, and she really helped out with, she was doing all the diapers and the food, and she was amazing. So it got to the point I wasn't really needed. It really wasn't as far because we weren't getting her out of bed and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of, it should have been a more natural progression of me moving out or whatever, and doing that. So I just rented a room in a house in town, and I was able to come help out and see her or whatever. And then I was blowing glass in that garage. I was blowing glass in the garage part time, trying to support myself. And this girl that I had moved in and everything, that turned out to be a mistake. So that was part of the whole issue and everything too. And she wasn't working, me only working part time, a lot of stress. Sunglass, be able to pay the rent when it came due, and like I said, everything was fine. And then these people decided they want to sell the house, and they're moving to Ohio because I had a job offer. And I'm gonna, you can't argue with that. And it's not like we got kicked out, but whereas like situation was, we could not afford to rent the whole house, and we'd have to get roommates, and they willing to work with us, but the realtor service said hell no. And rightly so. It would have been a nightmare trying to get roommates in such a short period of time, and who knows. So it just that didn't work out. So I'm sitting here unable to work. I don't have anywhere to work. I'm not going back to my parents' house after everything that's gone down. So we just came back here. I was just like, well, I can't support myself in Florida anymore, and I can't live with my parents. So this isn't gonna work. So we came back here, bouncing around Olympia again. I had that girl, and she wanted a dog and got a dog, and that made everything, renting a place. And so I was only able to get enough money to get uh back here with no money. So I had a friend who let us stay, and so I got right away, got right to work. I set up my glass blow and stuff with another friend, so I was able to ride my bike over there and blow glass. during the day. We just bounced around for a while, ended up in these apartments and stuff. So it just got really complicated because the best way for me to work is at home. And so if I'm living in an apartment, I have to rent another space for my glassblowing shop, and that's just expensive and very inconvenient. I don't like commuting, so it was a big situation. Having this dog and the whole relationship and everything, it just ruined my business and made everything just more complicated and stuff. So on top of that, my personal life was just spiraling pretty much because it was a toxic relationship, and I was just so stressed. And she eventually got a job and was working and stuff, but uh, I that ended finally, and it should have ended a whole lot sooner. But uh,
I know that
yeah,
feeling.
codependent relationships are not good. So that was a good really good lesson. Finally, I ended up we end that ended. So I left that apartment. I started staying in the basement where my glass shop was, in the tattoo shop, and then I moved down here to this apartment. On top of all of that, legalization uh, really tanked my business. It was so ironically, and so overnight we had so the state Washington politicians are liars. The state promised us that they wouldn't change any laws, that we'd be able to have our markets, we'd be able to grow our 15 plants and have our extra licenses for 15 more up to 45, and people were growing, making a living on it and everything, depending on it, or in some people just for their own personal use, and people who really needed it for medicine. I really favor the veterans and PTSD people because I know them personally and seen the effects that marijuana has with them. They totally screwed us. They had all these midnight meetings behind closed doors that we couldn't see that we're supposed to be able to, and changed a bunch of laws and put all the legalization in. And so what that did for me as a glass blower is all these new stores. At first, you think, "Oh wow, this is should be free for all." Like, how can we fail? And so it was literally overnight. Like, and just in my county, I sell glass in 3 counties, or if I had to, a 3 county area. And so uh, just in my county, there were like 25 new stores. Is it probably about 20? There's probably been through 20 overnight, probably starting off about 15 stores in a county of less than 200,000, or a county area less than 200,000, Olympia. So, um, all of these stores, most of these people are real business owners. It costs about $1 million to get into this industry as being a weed store or a grower producer. It's literally about $1 million after everything's said and done with the licensing and the security systems and just all the stuff they put you through. So um, these are some of these people don't even smoke weed. They're about that money. They're about business and really building it into an industry and everything. And I've even talked to people who built their businesses up so much they've got like a dozen stores, and they're preparing with lawyers to sell out to Marlboro and Budweiser and big conglomerates like that to when the state. It's going to get ugly with recreational marijuana here eventually. It's going to be like basically you can get, you know Marlboro brand, and they're going to squash out all the competition, and the quality is going to go down, and I don't know, it might bring back the black market and could be good for some of us, but then we'll have the war on drugs still. All these stores, these people, they don't know anything about, well, they don't even know anything about cannabis culture, much less the glass culture, and there's definitely a lot of culture involved with glass blowing and stuff. And so I do have lots of stores here that appreciate locally made hand goods. Luckily, I'm in an area like you're saying, the Renaissance fair type people. People really appreciate organically grown food, locally made goods. They don't mind paying extra for it. Part of the culture here, I could actually say. All these stores with these real business owners, and like I said, some of them don't even smoke weed. They're real business people, and they buy a bunch of import glass. So the market is completely flooded with import glass, which is something I have to sell for $15, they can buy for $1.50, $2 maybe 2.50, and then sell it for the same retail markup. So they're marking it up Chinese glass, 10 times when they can only mark mine up, 1,000% compared to my 100%. I sell them something for $10, they sell it for 20. It really hurt. It hurt bad. I struggled, and it really just made everything worse with my personal life because finances are just so big part of that, especially in a relationship and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
it yeah, it was never a good situation, and it just compounded so much there for like 3.5 years. I did get through all that, so I finally, I ended up moving down this apartment by myself, and complete. That was when, right at the end of all that was, and the reason to even talk about it is because that's when I found the Owen's podcast, pretty much, and it was that. It was a combination of Jordan Peterson stuff and a lot of different red pill content on the internet that um, just helped me out a lot. I started googling things about why is this wrong with my relationship type stuff, and then I went on a journey, and I learned a lot stuff that I could have never learned from. It's stuff I would have learned from like having older brothers or something, or like like I always looked at my parents too, as they could probably tell me they were married for 37 years. They could probably tell me about a marriage and how to maintain that. But my parents were married at 19, fresh out of high school. They can't tell me nothing about dating, and especially in the modern era. So
Mhm.
I was lost as hell for, that whole all my 20s and into my 30s. So now I'm very much differently educated and all that stuff. So I've put it all back together, like I really been inspired big time from Owen's podcast. Been listening. I think they were out in Saranac Lake. I remember seeing them get the property in Washington. I was like, whoa, in my state, that's amazing. And so it was easy to gravitate toward. It's definitely the kind of content that like I enjoy, and I really got into it. And I remember really getting into it heavy when I was living in that basement, and then everything's been a big time uphill climb ever since then. So the market did recover. It like kind of eased out. There was a time I had to get a part-time job and then a full-time job for a little while because I was just so sick of, well, it just got hard to make money. And also I didn't know, so this relates to the hashtag walk away movement and me going from liberal to conservative, more like classical liberal, certainly not leftist, but I
Mhm.
was like, at one time I would have cheered on Antifa because I was ignorant, and there wasn't what's going on now either. It was just ignorance. It was kind of like still like a punk rock. Oh, let's paint their anarchy symbol somewhere, and that's we're it was like, but it wasn't anything like it is today. And I knew a lot of those people in Olympia too. So it's just interesting to see how everything has changed. And I watched it all go into, morph into something that I couldn't agree with all the transgender stuff and, just everything we already all know about. It all started for me, I was like, we're about the same age. So you remember when 9/11 happened. And well, that's when I learned that you don't trust the media. I was finally old enough to understand anything on that level. I was like, I must have been 17 or something. And, so it was like close enough to be an adult that you can get it, if you're paying attention. And I got super patriotic and everything, and then felt like a fool when there was no weapons of mass destruction anywhere. It's like, so I knew that you don't trust the media. Government is shady. I learned that lesson there. Just probably just the same way people did when JFK was shot and they saw that shit on TV with their own two eyes. It must have been the same kind of feeling and
Mhm.
feeling deceived. So ever since then, I just kind of always put it. Didn't really pay attention to any of it. I didn't understand politics and stuff until Trump comes along and all those traveling years and everything. It was kind of, in this way, is like living under a rock. I didn't know who Trump was, so good for him too, because it was like me a fresh slate. And the media fucked up, and they turned me into a Trump supporter by me knowing that I know they're lying because of look at how persistent they are about demonizing him. It was just too obvious to me, and so I just started looking into what all he's about and everything. I was like, oh wow, he's trying to make America great again. This is something I can support. And over those and it was a slow start with me. At first, I just wanted to vote against Hillary. Then I educated myself, and now I really support a lot of the movement. It's a special thing for sure. And next month's going to be wild.
My
the
biggest
next
thing with the whole Trump media and that, even
uh-huh.
when he does pass a law that even is considered a
Yeah,
liberal, like it gets buried. They don't even talk about it. But like the other thing is, I'm not saying he's the cure for cancer by any means. He's a man. He has his flaws,
right.
but his
Yeah, he
whole
definitely does.
message is America first. And if you really look at the
Right,
policies put into place, he backs that up. And he does it for all
right.
Americans, regardless of color of skin, sexual orientation. And like it just
Yeah,
surprises me, like there's more stuff about him that's liberal, classically liberal, than
right,
there's not. And I just don't understand why they're demonizing so much. What's the end game is, and then you realize is he wants it to be, as you were talking, like you have stores that appreciate local American-made glass. Like that's what he's about. He's about going to us first and not transplanting everything
right,
overseas. And I just don't understand how.
right.
But then again, you have very powerful people who are going to lose money if that happens. So that's how it all
Yep,
plays out.
big time. Yeah,
Not to get too tinfoily,
I'm
but
worried about, yeah, right. Yeah, it's tinfoil hat stuff for sure, but it's viable ideas. I worry about what could happen in the future with my industry. So far, one awesome thing is we have proven twice now cannabis is recession proof. We've proven it. 2020 has been my best year, the most money I've made, and it wasn't like by 100%, but
that's awesome. I'm
I'm
really glad to hear
probably
that.
30% more this year. Yeah, I got everybody sitting at home smoking weed, I guess, so they're spending pipes too. The stimulus check, I got way more than $1,200, because
Mm.
people buying pipes. I got my $1,200 check, but then like sales went up right then, and so it's kind of a bubble. It's an artificial inflation, sort of, as far as like, but this year was the best year I've had as a glass blower yet. So that's
So
interesting to me, and
is glass
you
blowing
know,
your full time job now? Is that what you
yeah,
wake up every day and do?
yeah. So yeah, I looked to yes, and for the last year, so like I did it the whole time for the year and a half on the apprenticeship. Then until I went to Florida, so like the next 5 years until I went to Florida, that was my full time gig the whole time, and like I really struggled to make ends meet pretty much that whole time, and then started really get things back together, even with all the setbacks. Like it's just having the experience of how to start over again, over and over and over, was made it easier coming back from Florida to Washington, and then I did take off. So with all the politics and everything going on in the cancel culture is very much alive in the glass scene, and so I was just like, fuck all of this. The everybody in the glass scene, I just like I didn't want to be friends with any of these people anymore. Not that it was me changing. It was like, holy shit, I woke up around all these horrible people. Like they just all of them are Antifa supported. Not all of them. There's probably about five I can count on one hand that I know of for sure. And then there's like a bunch of them who just shut the fuck up so they can sell their glass, and might just be the smart thing for them if they got kids or whatever. And I have a lot of freedom. I have a lot more freedom than money, that's for
Mm.
sure. So I take different chances on things and stuff. So um when it came to I just exited. I needed to exit the glass scene. I was like, I think I need to find a whole new career, because this isn't the crowd I need to be associated with. It's embarrassing to me to watch the cancel culture, and just the everything I all of my principles and beliefs of a conservative are absolutely shit upon in the glass scene, and for the most part the cannabis scene too. When I worked at that weed store, we were told we weren't allowed to talk about politics, and but when we were, I was the only person that was anything remotely conservative. One person, there was a few people that were rather hateful about towards conservatives and stuff, and told I was the most vile, disgusting person they've ever met before she quit and stuff. And I laughed about it, but
Mm.
I told her thanks for the compliment. Actually, it was, yeah. But those that kind of people, in the weed and the. So I was just like, I think I'm done. So I went. My buddy just had bought this house, and now I was still living in the basement actually. And so my buddy Jeremy bought the house that I'm in now, and it's the main house, this little corner lot in the neighborhood, and then the backyard's where a glass shop is, and my apartment's. But it looks like a barn in the backyard, but the bottom's storage and a glass shop, and then my apartment's upstairs.
Just so everybody watching knows, you don't just make pipes.
Mhm.
You do other things.
Oh,
For
I love
example,
making marbles. I
today I bought a
what's
pendant, which I'm really stoked to get.
yeah
But
yeah
uh, I mean, you do have
Don't
to
look
be the.
good on you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You do have a lot of great work. What's the
Thank you.
best place that people can get your work in the local Olympia area, or is the Etsy shop the best way to get your work?
Well, contacting me directly is always more than welcome. That's probably the easiest way. It's there is the Etsy, and that link is in my profile. And then
And it's going to be in the description
if you're
below of
in
this
the
video.
Olympia area, cool. Yeah. Yeah, in the Olympia area, I sell to most of the weed stores here in the county. I sell to a couple in Grace Harbor, Canvas 21. Um, I haven't seen any other bears in this area except for I think it's permaculture bear. I went and hung out with him. He's got cows and
Yeah,
pigs and chickens and ducks and everything,
I
man. It
saw the
was
picture on your page.
pretty
I
neat
thought that
to
was
see.
really cool that you two met up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's the closest one I've seen at all. Like even so he's like 20-minute drive. That's it to away. So that we'll definitely be hanging out some more too. Um
One of the works that you did that I really do want to talk to you offline about
mhm.
is the Crush Dragon Head incense bottles.
Yeah.
I do want to get two of those, one for me and one for my brother. So
I have
we'll
to find
definitely
the bottles.
yeah, we'll definitely
Those
talk.
I got the bottle from just a random. I'm sure I can get another one, but I have to look because I got it from a taco truck somewhere in Olympia, and so I bet you can get them online or something.
Yeah,
But so it's like, yeah, I don't see them in stores. Like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the I've made this year, I made at least 75 of those or something like that, and sold them all. I did like towards, I did Black Friday sales, and so it's like I did cut some really good deals towards the end of the year just to get rid of all of them. But I was able to move them. It was the first time I ever did them was this year. I was really impressed. So did a lot of those. I probably made about 200 Christmas ornaments. Some of them, the clear ones, like I was showing with the giveaway and stuff like that. And then I did a bunch of color ones. And
I think
yeah, John bought. Hmm?
I was just gonna say from the pictures I've seen, I think those are amazing. I think they're
Cool.
awesome, and I'm definitely gonna contact you and see what we can do to try to get two of those made, and especially the Crush bottle. Like considering the
Yeah.
Beartaria community, I think
Right. Right.
that's
Yeah,
super
that's
awesome.
exactly why I kept that one.
It and
So
if you could make a
yeah.
bear's head instead of a dragon's head, that would be dope too.
Uh, I don't know. So the dragon's head is it's just so it's easy to do. The way the glass works, like that's the glass I use for pipes and everything, and the marbles and all that stuff I do is borosilicate, and it's just really thermal resistant and thermal shock resistant. It works different, totally different melting point, temperature, and everything. So the bottles are soft glass, and they pop easy. Like you got to be really gentle with the way you heat them up in the flame, real slow. And I can do a video of it. I've done them before. I've done live streams where I make them there. They're great for demos because you have to. You have a very limited window of time. Like once the glass is hot, it you have to, and it'll stay molten to where you can move it around and use the tweezers to make your little features on your face. But it's once it's hot and it cools all the way back down, you're done. Like you got a very short window of time where you can like maybe apply a little bit of heat and get some more features done. So it's like if I were to do a bear sculpture, it would have to be in the boro glass. And I don't know. I can do skulls. I've done a lot of skulls, like a tattoo looking human skull kind of looking thing.
Very cool.
I don't know if a bear face would be. If I were, what I would like to do is the Millie images, and that's something I'll have to post pictures of, and I'll tag it and show you what that is. It's a way to make a long cane of a picture inside of glass, and then make slices of it, and each face has that picture you can reproduce.
Very cool. Very cool.
They're really
Um,
cool. So
are you single right
I think
now,
that's
or are you dating right now?
yeah. No, I'm single, man. Yeah, I'm enjoying my peace.
So not
Like I'm
looking.
not like actively trying to date. Nah, not right now.
Okay.
Maybe one day again.
All right. Just to carry on some of the questions. Spiritual life.
Sure.
Where you at there?
Oh, well, like I said, I grew up in the Southern Baptist household
Hmm.
and rebelled against it hard. So, but I never like, well, I guess I've come around full circle. I mean, I'd probably never go to a Southern Baptist church. it's just not my flavor. I'm really curious about, I want to learn about the Bible through a Jewish church, I think, or synagogue, just
Hmm.
because I want to start with the Old Testament, and they seem to specialize in that.
That's their
So,
thing. That's what they're known for.
right, yeah. So, I've been really curious about that. I would like to start learning about the Bible. Like so with the teenage years and early, it's such a typical story about. Well, I was atheist for a while, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'm agnostic, and then you live some life and you see things, and you just have revelations and stuff, and you just kind of. And now I believe in God, but I'm non-denominational, really. So, um, and it's not even hard to believe in God, really. It's having the faith in that is natural feeling, honestly, but you know, and I think Owen's talked a lot about it. Makes a lot of sense about how religion people have tainted religion so much, and I saw that big time with the Southern Baptists that I saw. I can only speak for the two churches I grew up in, especially the one over the other. They're rather hateful people, very closed-minded, and even they were unwelcoming to almost anybody, and they really truly believe you're going to hell if you don't go into their church, as if like their 30 people are the only ones going to go to heaven or something. It
Hmm.
was stupid and bizarre, honestly. So unfortunately, that ruined Christianity for me for a long time. These last 5 years or so, I've really come changed a lot of that. So I definitely would say I'm like a spiritual person, and I definitely appreciate everything that I do know and understand. Like I know the basic story of Jesus and all this stuff, but what really turned me off and made it is the way so many people, the way I was growing up, they took everything so literally. And well, I've just done a lot of research and seen lots of videos and stuff online about these things make so much sense without it having to be literal history,
Hmm.
So I think that's where I got hung up for sure on being like, well, screw this. If it's so hard to believe it to be, you don't have to believe it literally,
Yeah.
to understand the wisdom.
And I think that's something recently Owen in his live streams has been touching on, not taking it so literally. I've always said to me the Bible
Right.
is just a guide to be a good human being. If that's what people
Right.
take out of the Bible, I think that's fantastic. But the spiritual
Hmm.
journey is everybody's to take, and I'm just always curious to find out where everybody's at. So that's kind of why I always ask that question. All right, last question of the
That's a
night.
great question.
Last question of the night.
All right.
The origin of the name. And please
Origin of the name.
tell people how to pronounce it properly, so they don't look like an idiot when they first start
Okay.
talking to you. To be like, "Oh, what's up, you veg Fujo bear?"
Okay, it's Uveg Fujo bear, and Uveg Fujo is a Hungarian word for glassblower. And my grandfather is Hungarian. His parents were immigrants, so um, I'm not first generation. I guess I'll be third generation. Um, so I'm just an American. My grandfather's wife is Irish, so it's probably why I look a lot like the way I do. I'm mostly Hungarian and Irish, and I don't know. My grandfather was a sniper in Korean War, and I just always liked the Hungarian history and stuff, and I just feel connected to it some way. I guess maybe how like Native Americans might feel connected to their tribal iconography and stuff like that, and all. So, it means something to me. It's like my heritage, and having Hungarian heritage, and I have it tattooed on my knuckles, so it fit perfectly. And when I found that online, because I don't speak Hungarian, but I have had it verified. You can Google it. And I've had two different Hungarian people tell me that it is absolutely translated properly. So
That's awesome. And I'm guessing
that's
what's
it.
great
Yep.
about that name is you never have to fight for that username on any site.
That was definitely it. It took me a minute to think of a few, and I had heard a few already be taken that I wanted, and then I had a couple I was like didn't really fit me. Some of it were kind of funny, but I was like, no, it's not good. So, but then
I,
Uveg
th-
Fujo Bear is perfect.
I think it's really cool. That's a really cool name, and especially now knowing the history behind it, now I completely understand and get it. You got anything coming up
Yeah,
that you want to promote or any shout
yeah,
outs?
yeah, definitely. In February, I will be doing the Tattoo Expo. I'll have my booth there selling all my glass. Like you were asking about what else do I do? Pipes is a predominant thing for sure, and it's mostly like wholesale to stores. So that is the bread and butter because it's lot of work to be had with it. And what I really like to do is marbles, and sometimes they'll be like this big around, and they're all downstairs. But I do a lot of skull stuff. The marbles are really cool. I'll be posting pictures of the marbles. I have done lots of goblets, for drinking wine and things out, mead glasses.
Real quick, anybody who's interested and maybe not in the Olympia area and you hear you talking about this, like the goblets and that, what's the best way to
Uh,
contact you to commission you to do something? Would that be Etsy?
no, definitely not. Just I'd say just through the app. You can
Okay.
contact me. Yeah, we've got the direct message thing. So this is kind of focused on the bear community. So I would just recommend that, unless we're already connected on Facebook, but I don't think so. And I'm actually about to start a whole new Facebook and everything. I'm going to be doing a lot of the patriotic stuff because what I took a risk and I got ostracized completely from the um glass scene. I knew I was going to. That's why it's an account called Phoenix Piper, and so it's not my real name, or even like there's no pictures of me, and I don't even do like work that you could recognize me from. I've been very strategic with it, and it's been a lot of fun. But at the same time, I was doing it to antagonize the liberals in the glass scene. But I gained a following of like people who are like minded,
Mhm.
and there I would post things that anti BLM type rhetoric, I would say, or something, or not rhetoric, but my opinion on I don't like BLM actions and things, and get a whole slew of hate, from 3,000 different people, and then you get all the people that want to argue with them, and then you'd get people be like, no one's ever going to buy anything from a racist, and then a store would hit me up right then and say, I'm going to buy something from him right now, and I've repeat sold to that guy, and so I've sold glass just on my principles.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like a real small scale thing of like how Owen did it. It's like, if we're gonna walk away from it, let's go big,
Yep.
and really just tell the truth, and the people who are supposed to be supporting you will. And
Absolutely.
it's not on any grand scale like Owen's got going on, but it's certainly inspired by.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about the app. Now I get to practice in-group preference. I now get to vote with my
Big time,
dollar,
big
and
time.
my money is going towards bears. If you have a product that I need,
Hmm.
I'm buying it from a bear. Okay, so the tattoo convention. Where's it at? When's it at happening?
Oh, breaking up. There you go. That is at Little Creek Casino in Shelton, Washington. It's near Olympia. It's about 20 minutes outside of Olympia, so it's in our area. It's in Mason County, but yeah, that's a nice expo hall they have there. Their last time I was there was about 80 different tattoo shops and artists. So if you're into tattoos, it's one of the best places to go to get tattooed because you have a huge variety. You got people hungry to tattoo. Everybody's not everybody, but you can enter your work into for trophies and plaques and things and awards and recognition and stuff amongst the community. So that's a big thing. They judge tattoos that people are doing there. You can also have them judged that are already healed up from long ago or whatever. So there's that competitive edge to it. I'll be selling glass. I'm going to have a lot of marbles. Actually, make glass tattoo machines that are also a pipe. It's a pipe that just kind of shaped like a tat, or not kind of. I'll have pictures. Actually,
Okay.
I got one right here.
Oh wow, that really
That
does look
is
like a tattoo gun.
yeah.
That's
And
really
it's a
good.
pipe. Yeah, thanks. I really start doing a lot with the Americana color scheme because I've just got a lot of ideas with it, and I feel passionate about it. And to me, it's kind of like trolling the glass scene the same way Owen's existence trolls just his existence trolls Hollywood. That's me in the glass scene. Is my very existence trolls the whole fucking glass scene. They hate me, and it makes me laugh. So I'm going with it. And so next year, I'm getting rid of the like in just a week. I'm going to do it on the first. Getting rid of the fake profile. I'm going back to my full real name just because I don't know. It just feels like the right thing to do. Like another middle finger. Like you can't dox me, bitches. Like I work for myself. There's no
Mhm.
boss. You can't. You're not going to get me like that. Not through Facebook. So I don't have to worry about that. And it's like no one's going to show up at my house. I don't have kids to protect, or people showing up at their school or anything. And also, I'm not going to be driving it home with the politics. I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yeah.
And but just my very existence with all the Americana. American flag stuff, don't tread on me theme glass and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be very obvious how patriotic I am, and that's enough to, my opinions just on based without me having to say them is what I'm trying to do with my glass next year.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. I want to thank you for
Awesome,
coming
man.
on. I appreciate it, Sean. I think it's been an amazing story. I
Thank
think you've
you.
come really far in your
That's
journey.
2 hours.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I am so
Yeah,
glad
I
that
have.
you're with us. You're in our community. I think you have an
Thank
awesome
you.
skill
I'm
set.
so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, again, on Etsy, it's Phoenix Forge. If you're interested in looking at his products.
Yeah, I'm gonna be changing that this year too. When I change everything over with the Facebook, I'm also already got my Instagram changed over. It's called Old Glory Glassworks, and so my Etsy will be Old Glory Glassworks here very soon. Pretty much after the first of the year is when I'm making the big transition to just more. I got a business license this year for the glass too, and I'm getting business cards and everything. So it's kind of a
Awesome.
step towards legitimizing everything and having it all in my real name for the first time
Awesome.
in my glass career. Actually.
Appreciate
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Appreciate you walking into the
yeah,
Right Saloon. And for everybody
yeah.
out there, if you want to be a guest on the Right Saloon, please email me at waywardbear1@gmail.com and I'll be sure to contact you and we'll hopefully get you on. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate it.
I guess.